My name is Shaundelle Brooks, and I'm here today to ask Governor Lee and the lawmakers at Tennessee General Assembly to vote against permitless carry. Legislation that would remove background checks and basic gun safety training to carry a loaded firearm in public, openly and concealed. Data shows that states have implemented permitless carry laws have seen increases in overall gun death and gun homicide. According to the most recent data, Tennessee is now the 8th in the nation for firearm homicide, far outpacing the U.S. average for firearm homicide. Firearm homicide numbers have continued to increase in Tennessee, most noticeably in the last 6 years. According to 2018 data, 37 more Tennesseans were murdered with a gun in 2018 than in 2017. An increase like that should matter to all Tennesseans, but it especially matters to me, because one of those murdered with a gun in 2018 was my son, Akilah Dasilva. Akilah was one of the 4 innocent young people who were gunned down at Antioch Waffle House in April 22nd, 2018. Akilah with his brother, my older son Abedi, Akilah's girlfriend Tia were doing what many young people do, enjoying some late night food before heading home for the night, when a young man entered Waffle House, opened fire. Akilah and 3 other young people were killed. Tia suffered serious injury to her leg. Receiving a call that your child was shot and learning that he didn't make it was devastating. Looking at his cold, motionless body in a box was painful and traumatic. It's something a mother, a parent, a family should never have to experience. My son Akilah was a gifted artist, an excellent student. He wrote and produced songs, shot and edited videos, built his own computer from scratch, and worked on his music. He was a computer engineer with a purpose. Akilah's music was positive. Like many young people in our country, he was upset by gun violence in our country, and his music urged people to turn away from violence. One of the lines in one of his songs was, "Forget about making a hashtag. Let's throw all the guns in a trash bag." My son was a beautiful soul who perfected how to be a son, a great brother to his siblings, and a loving boyfriend to Tia. But most of all, Akilah wanted to live. We didn't lose him. He was taken from us, and none of our lives will ever be the same. See, the person who murdered my son was prohibited from possessing guns in his home state of Illinois. In Illinois, to purchase or possess a gun, you must have either a gun permit or a firearm owner's identification card. But after he breached the secured area of the White House and following several run-ins with the police, Illinois authorities revoked his firearm owner's identification card, which meant he can no longer legally possess guns in Illinois. He was allowed to dispossess those guns to his father. When he decided to move to Tennessee, his father gave the guns back to him. At that point, both he and his father were breaking Illinois' law. But after he crossed Tennessee state line, he was legally allowed to possess those guns, because in our state, you are not required to have a permit or a firearm owner identification card to possess a gun. If you pass this permitless legislation, that means that someone like that disturbed man who murdered my son would not only be able to legally possess a gun in our state, he'd also be allowed to carry it in public. He'd be able to carry a loaded gun anywhere in Tennessee that guns are allowed, which in this state is a lot of places. Since my son was murdered, I have learned a lot about gun violence in our country and our state. I've studied the data and looked at the research. I've also dedicated my life to doing what I can to prevent another family from suffering the way my family has suffered, to prevent another mother from having to bury her child, from having to wake up every single day with a broken heart and the knowledge that she will grow old without him. It is impossible to imagine the pain you feel when your loved one is violently taken from you unless you experience it. It is a pain unlike any other. It is important to understand that effects of gun violence are not just the loss of life. But my son Abedi suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after what he saw and experienced inside the Waffle House. Akilah's girlfriend is not just mourning over losing her boyfriend. Her leg was completely shattered by the bullet that struck it. She has undergone multiple surgeries and is still unable to walk. She is in constant pain. We do not know if she will ever be able to walk unassisted again. My life is now dedicated to keeping my son's memory alive and doing everything I can to reduce gun violence in our country and here in Tennessee. Today that means coming before you and asking you to please listen to law enforcement and public safety experts, families that are personally affected by such horrific and traumatic act of violence, and vote against this law. I hate speaking in public. I'm far outside my comfort zone. Speaking in public makes me nervous. But I'm here because Akilah would want me to be here. I'm his voice, and now I'm asking you to please do the right thing. Tennessee has one of the worst gun violence problems in this entire country. This legislation that you're considering will do nothing to reduce gun violence in our state, and based on other states' data, after they pass the permitless carry, will lead to increased gun deaths in our communities. Please, instead of looking at ways to make it easier for people to carry more guns in more places, please consider evidence-based policies that make it harder for people who should have to access guns, who should not have access to guns in their hands and guns to carry in public. Please, I ask you, as a citizen and a grieving mother, please vote no to this legislation. Thank you.